Hello, this is Keith George, and this video will be an overview of the second part of the Managing Classroom Data module. Of course, depending on which learning management system you are using, it may look a little bit different, but I have this as an independent practice assignment, so the first thing to do is to open the spreadsheet, this link here, and it's going to ask us to make a copy. And so we're going to make that copy. And so now let me just show you a few things on this spreadsheet. With my recording tools down here, let's hide those so that you can see, because this spreadsheet is actually made up of several tabs. Each tab is a set of assignments. Oops, not what I wanted to do. So some of them start out very basic and have yellow squares. These are the areas where there are answers that you must complete. How many points did student A earn on this assessment? This is just a simple math formula. I'm not going to give you the easy ones because I'm going to spend some more time on the ones that are more challenging. So you'll just figure out how to do a formula here that adds these numbers together. And then if there were 25 possible points, how would you determine the percent correct? And the basics of all of those are included in the videos that have been included for you. So that's why I'm not going to spend too much time going over those, because there are some that are definitely more challenging. Same thing for tab 2. You're calculating the average score and the average percent correct. Notice that to find the average score here, it's the average score on each item. So you're trying to find the average score that the students earned. So this is actually what you're averaging. Notice it's a long list. That's why we would want the computer to do it instead of us doing it. And you'll put the average here, and then you'll do the average percent correct, noticing that there's a points possible of 2. So you're going to calculate the average for that as well. So that's tab 2. Again, pretty straightforward. You basically just calculate whatever is needed to fill yellow. Transposing. Again, transpose is a simple little formula. There's a video on it, but you're going to figure out how to automatically put the data that's across this row and have it populate into this row. Sorting data. You're going to sort this table according to this direction. So first, they're going to be ordered by the attendance rate from highest to lowest. And then if that attendance rate happens to be the same, it'll sort by the last initial and then by the first name. So when you have successfully completed this sort, you will have the exact same number of cells, but the highest attendance rates will be at the top and sorted secondarily according to last initial and then first name. So again, that one's pretty easy as well. The filter data, again, you're going to filter the data based on this, and there's a video on filtering. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But I will give you a little tip in that when this one is complete, it will not have the same number of rows. You will only show the rows that meet the filter criteria. Pasting special is, again, a way to take formatted text that's based on, when I click in these cells, you see that this is a formula. Well, if I try to copy that and paste it, it will paste the formula. And if I just want the values over here without trying to manually copy them, I can use paste special. So again, you'll have something in each of the yellow rows. So that's tab 6. And then I'm actually going to jump to tab 10 because it's another fairly easy one. And this is to use the formula to concatenate two cells into one, but you're also using the left formula to shorten the last name. So you're actually using two different formulas in one. And so you'll need to pay attention to make sure that you answer both parts of this question. So what will show up in the yellow cells is actually the first name and the last initial. Obviously, without you typing it, I'll be able to look and see that you have a formula there. All right, so now let's jump back to T8. So on T8, it's not really a hard formula to implement, it's just complex. And I distinguish that in that you're really just repeating different functions over and over. So let's read what it's asking us for. Use a conditional command, a set of if statements, to calculate the percentage of possible points earned for multiple choice items and open response items for each student. So let's break this down into what we need. The percentage of possible points earned for all of the multiple choice questions for each student. So what we're actually doing is we're finding the sum of several averages. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of formulas and put them together to calculate this multiple choice percentage possible points earned. Okay, so let's think through what we need to do. First thing we need to do is we need to find the percent possible earned for each question, but then we're only going to add them if it meets one of our criteria. Okay, so I'm going to pop up part of something for you here, and I'm going to take this where I've calculated it, and I'm going to try to break it down for you so that you see what's going on. So for right now, I'm going to put these cells together so that I have a little bit of a workspace here so that you can see what I'm doing. And actually, I want to paste that as special, which you're actually getting a freebie here. Oh, I don't want values only, I want formula only. Let me do it this way so I'm going to take the equal sign out so that it will put my formula there so that you can see it, because I want to break this down for you. And I'm also going to increase the size of this. That's a little too big. Okay, so really just ignore that part. I just want you to be able to see this formula to see what's happening. And of course, I've left my equal sign out so that it doesn't try to calculate this. So there's a couple of things here. First off, I'm summing if they meet a certain criteria. But then it actually wants the percentage. So to do the percentage, I have to do the sum of what Leon actually scored and divide it by the actual points possible up here. Okay, so let me show you the different parts here. The first thing is to sum if the values in this first part of the calculation here is equal, if I look in H8 to AF8, which is the question type, if I see MC here, then I want to add the values of H13, which is Leon's scores. Now, so let's just kind of break that first part down. Look in H8 to AF8, which is here, and if you see MC in a particular column, add that to the total from from H13 to AF13. So basically row 8, if you see MC, add what's in row 13. Now, we have some complications here in that this row will never change. It's always going to be this row. So we're planning ahead to be able to copy this formula down. This row we will want to change to go with each student, but this row always stays the same. So for row 8, starting with H in our range, we're using dollar signs before the H and before the 8, before each of the numbers in the range, to say absolute reference. Always look here for the MC. But in the row that we want to add, we're not saying absolutely because it's going to change when we go from student to student. So this will get us the student's score on any question that was multiple choice. And it will add those because it's the sum if. So it's finding the sum of the student scores in columns that equal MC. But we want an average, so now we have to divide it. Now in our division, we're still going to have to sum the values, but this time we're looking for the values that are equal to question type MC in row 10, the points possible. Here's row 10. Now, because when we copy this formula down, our points possible is another one of those rows that always stays the same. So this time we have $8, H, $8 to $AF, $8 to say absolutely look in this row for the question type. And we're dealing with MC right now. And then we're also saying if the numbers in absolutely row 10, sum them if they meet this criteria. So the first half of the formula is finding the sum of Leon's scores on question types that equal MC. The second half of the formula is finding the sum of the points possible for question types for MC. And so we're putting it together. So sum if, open parentheses, we have our first one, divided by the sum of our points possible will give us an average. So the only really difficult part is making sure that you have both parts, making sure that it's an absolute reference, and making sure that you have all of your the correct criteria. So here's how you would actually implement that. I'll go to the cell where I want to put it first, and I'm going to do equal sign. And because I'm combining two different formulas to create the average, I immediately need a parenthesis to do my first half, and that's my first sum if. And in this one, I'm wanting to get absolutely row H8 to absolutely AF8. So I can select that range. If I was doing this from scratch, I would select the range and I actually didn't want to press enter yet. Pardon me on that. Let's fix that. So I wasn't done with my formula yet. And then my criteria for this one is the text of MC, so inside quotes, and the range that I want to sum is this first row for Leon. Now I hit enter. Now, it's okay that this doesn't look right yet because we've only done half of the formula, but we're actually not done because we've already discovered that we're going to copy this. So we want this first one to be absolute. So we're going to do $H, $8, $AF, $8. So there's our first half. But now we have to divide that by the sum if of our points possible. So because we're doing the second half of it, I need to do sum if again. And I need to select the range that the criterion is in, which again is the question type. And then I want to do a comma, the text I'm looking for, and then comma, and then where the points possible are is right here. Now, I normally would be just about finished, but again, we've already decided that these again are absolute references. They don't move. So we're going to add our dollar signs. And this time we're adding dollar signs to both. And again, you'll see in just 1 second why this is important. Now, my parentheses are highlighted there. I don't have a closing parenthesis for this. And I don't have a closing parenthesis for the first sum if. So I actually need a closing parentheses there, closing parentheses there. Now, it's showing us 0%, so let's double check that we have the correct H8 to H13. Oh, I see. Look there. I didn't do a dollar sign there. I did a multiplication. That messed everything up. So there we are, 82%. Now, I didn't do that on purpose, but that's a great example of how important you need to double check your syntax, make sure you have the right characters there, and everything ready to go. So that's 82% for multiple choice. Now, that took us some time to get that formula. But now watch how easy it is now that we know what we're looking for and what we're doing. So to get the multiple choice percentage points earned for all the other students, we can drag down and it's going to copy that formula. But here's what's important. Notice that because we added our absolute cell references from our first one was H13 to AF13, but there's 8 and there's 8 and 10. When we copy the formula, the one that's not an absolute reference changes incrementally the way we're going, but notice that the absolute ones don't. And that's important. We have to think about that when we set up our first formula. So now I can finish copying this down. And voila, I have all my formulas. Now, let's think about this one. What is the only difference in the calculation for the open response points earned? We're still looking at Leon. We're still looking at the same place for the question type. We're still looking at the same place for the points earned. The only difference is the variable that we're looking for. So what we can do is we can actually copy, and I don't want to drag it because it will try to move the not absolute references. So I'm going to copy it, go to the next cell, paste it, and then let's think what's the only thing that's different is our text that we're looking for. We now want to look for OR in both places. And now on the open response, we see that Leon did much, much more poorly. And you can kind of look through there. Here's a 0 for open response. Here's another 0 on open response. And if we went through each of these, we would see that on the open response ones, he's not doing as well. He has several zeros. Now, because again, we used our absolute reference, we're perfectly safe dragging this down. And now we have actually completed. Let's double check that we're looking at the right things. Absolutely, and we can spot check a couple of these if you want to. And you've got your formulas filled in now. So again, the use of the dollar signs to make absolute references are vital to being able to copy the formula so that you don't have to redo it over and over. So that is T8. Now, for T9, we're going to calculate the weighted average for each student based on the following information. Homework is 10%, quizzes 20, performance assessment 40, unit assessments 30. Please find the final weighted average for what's in, and you're going to put it in column T. So really you're doing the same thing. You're going to find the sum because what's your end goal? A weighted average. So first off, let's talk about a weighted average. An average is simply the points earned divided by the points possible. But a weighted average uses categories to provide additional weight to it. So for instance, you have homework is 10%. So if you just wanted to find out your homework average and you added all your homework scores together and your homework scores, if you had, let's say that you earned, I'll try to do some easy numbers, 75 points divided by 100. Let's make it a formula so that you see the answer. 75 divided by 100 is 75%, if we do that as a percent. But if my homework is only worth 10% of my grade, then to find that weighted average, I have to first find all of the averages, just like I did. But then I have to multiply my average by the percent that the homework weights. So for this one, for homework, I would do a formula such as, so equal sign and then that answer times 0.10, which is 10%. And so my total value of my homework is actually just now 7.5%. Okay, and you can see that 7.5 is 75% of 10. And then I would do my quizzes, my performance assessment, and I would add all those together. So, and then they would equal, this would end up equaling 100. Okay, now we don't need to figure just that though. We need to also do the weighted average for each of these scores. So I just told you that my homework was 75 out of 100. We don't know what the actual one is. We need to figure that out. So this is just an extension first of what we just did with sum if. We have to do the sum if to find the sum of the percentages of the scores for each category. So again, let me We pull one from here, and don't freak out when you see this, because again, what I'm going to do is merge those, paste it there, but I'm going to take off my equal sign so that doesn't think of it as a formula. And then I'm going to get rid of some of this because I want to break this down for you. Okay, now let's acknowledge a couple of things first. Again, I don't have my equal sign there on purpose so that it doesn't try to calculate the formula. And my number of parentheses will probably be off at each time too. But I want to break this down for you into things that you already know. So really, if you leave this last part out, this is the same formula you just did. You're doing a sum if for F6 to S6. So that is the assignment type, row 6, starting with F, going to the end. And you're looking for homework scores. So if this equals homework for our first student, Leon again, and his data is in F9. Why is this an absolute reference? Because the assignment type never moves. Why is this F9 to S9 not? Why does it not have dollar signs? Because we're going to want this to adjust from student to student. Okay, so we're summing if this equals homework for Leon. We're getting his homework scores. And then we're dividing it, just like we did before, by the total points possible if the assignment type equals homework. So this first part, let me show you up here so I can highlight a little bit. This first part, please let me highlight. This first part is exactly what you did before. Exactly what you did. You're just finding the sum if it equals the right category, and you're dividing it, which will give you a percentage, a homework percentage. Just like I told you it was 75 before, that's the homework percentage. But now this additional part here is where we came up with the percentage that the homework is weighted, 10%. There's the 10%. So what we have here is we've calculated the average of the homework scores for Leon, and now we've multiplied it by 0.10 to get the weight. But we're not done, because we also have to do the same thing for quizzes, the same thing for performance assessment, the same thing for unit assessments. So let's think for a minute. If this gets us what we need for homework, can't we just reuse this? I'm going to copy, come over here. What are we going to do to the different weights? We're going to find them until they total 100. So I'll add a plus sign, and I'll paste how we did the homework, except this time I'm going to change it to performance assessment, which is abbreviated as perform. Notice that I'm putting it inside quotes, and I'm putting it exactly as it is, in this case, all capitals. And I'll do the same thing over here. Form. So now I'm going to find the average for perform, but I have to find the weight of that. And performance, I did these out of order, but it's actually okay, it doesn't matter, is 40%, which is 0.40. And then close that parentheses, plus, copy again, except this time I'll go back and do my quizzes that I skipped. And quizzes are abbreviated as quiz. Quiz. Spelling is important. And then my weight for the quizzes is 0.2 or 20%. Close that parentheses, plus paste what I had copied before. And now I need unit assessments, and unit assessments are abbreviated as just unit. So I'm doing the same thing, except now this is unit. Again, spelling. And I didn't get my W there. And the unit assessment percentage is 30 or 0.3. Close my parentheses. And I can do some quick little checks here because my multipliers here, 30 plus 40 is 70, plus 20 is 90, plus 10 is 100. So I have my right totals of weights. And so now when I hit enter, let me do my equal sign to make this a formula. So, and it's telling me my formula has an error, and that's because that equal sign is at the end. I mistyped it. There is my final weighted average for Leon as a decimal. I just do it as a percent. Okay, now this is actually supposed to go in this row, so I can copy, paste. It's trying to use the merged cell size here, so let's unmerge that. Well, let's undo, undo, undo. And we'll unmerge this first. And now when I copy, we'll show 0%. So what has changed? It tried to change my variables here. Look how it's looking at row V now. I don't want row V. That's not what I'm looking for. So what I want to do is I'm going to undo to get my formula, and I'm going to copy it the traditional way. Select it, copy, go here. So now it's got the right values, press enter. There's my 84%. Now, again, because I was smart and used my dollar signs on all of these rows that don't change, I now can copy it because if you look at final weighted averages, it's looking at 6 for the first part and 7 for the last part. The only thing that changes is F9 to S9, because now if it goes to didn't change, F10, F11, and then as it went down, I want to copy it farther. Okay, so again, this looks complicated. It looks complicated, but it's not. Break it down into its parts. You're summing if to find the first, you're summing if to find the number of homework points earned. You divide that by the sum if it's homework of points possible. You multiply it by the percentage for homework. You add that to the exact same thing for performance, the exact same thing for quizzes, the exact same thing for unit, changing the multipliers for your weight. And then once you get it solved for one, you've got it solved for the rest because you've used your dollar signs for absolute references. Okay, so that's how you do what are seemingly complex formulas, but using absolute cell references so that you can use them over and over. Hopefully this has been helpful. And of course, if you have any questions, let us know. Thanks.